A big warm welcome to the Clarewood podcast, Patrice. It is so lovely to have you here.
It is delightful to be here. Thank you for having me.
And you're in the Eastern time zone. So whereabouts are you based?
I'm based in just north of Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, well, it's wonderful to have you joining us here today. Patrice, for any of the listeners who don't know who you are and what you do, could you do a quick intro to yourself?
Sure, I'm the founder of the Institute for Redefining Wealth and the host of the Redefining Wealth podcast. And simply put, my mission is to help redefine wealth for this generation. And I came into this just with my own experience. I call it a bathroom floor moment. So, if anyone's ever been sick and tired of being sick and tired with where they are financially, I am your girl. So, I started what became a seven-figure business straight out of college and thought that it would go on forever, Claire, until my bathroom floor moment. This is when reality hit that my seven-figure business had crumbled and I was now scraping up change to feed my daughter. And I was in the mirror in this teeny tiny apartment after my home foreclosed in Southern California, looking in the mirror and just kind of going, God, why me? I've been a good
Mm.
person. I try to operate in integrity. I treat people well. And I did what I was told to do: go to school, get good grades, and you should be able to get a great job or start a business. I followed the recipe to a T. So, what the heck is going on? Earlier that day, Claire, I ran down the hallway to chase the power man who had come to turn our power off for lack of payment. And I chased him with my baby on my hip and literally begged this man to turn the lights on or her milk would spoil. And he said, Hey, I can do it. I'll take pity on you today, but they'll be back tomorrow, the day after. And I'm like, I needed 2 days. Just let me figure it out. You could have never told me when I was in university, graduating with honors, a business degree in entrepreneurial studies, having gotten my broker's license in real estate at just 21 years old, that I would be in this position where I'm making decisions about, do I pay the light bill or do I get more food or do I pay car insurance, about very basic household necessities. But here I was at that time with a baby. And I got in the mirror that day and just cried, God, why me? And it turned into crying on the bathroom floor, a good ugly cry. Claire, I don't know if you've ever ugly cried, but it was the ugliest cry, the unrecognizable face puffy cry, where I felt this sense of, I've literally brought myself as far as I could take myself. I don't know what else to do because I thought I did all the right things. And I had what I refer to as a still small voice kind of nudge me and say, Hey, get your Bible. And I'm one of those people, I don't care if it's a Bible or any book. I have this thing where I'll just open it to a page and feel like whatever is on the page was exactly what I needed in that moment. I don't know if you've ever done that. I opened it and I landed on this scripture. It was Proverbs 17:16. And it said, What good is money in the hands of a fool if they have no desire to seek wisdom? What good is money in the hands of a fool if they have no desire to seek wisdom? And while I had been very smart, very educated, could pass the broker's exam on the first try, it was the first time something told me, look up the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge was being able to gather all of the information and have the education, but wisdom was, how do you apply it? And when I got radically honest with myself in that moment, I realized that I had been very smart and very educated, but I didn't always make wise choices with money. I didn't always seek wise counsel. I was so used to being the person that everybody else came to ask for help that I didn't even know how to ask for help. And I just suffered in silence through this whole period of what became for us the Great Recession here. And from that moment on, I just felt this burning desire like, man, I wonder if other people know these things or feel this way. And as my first grade teacher taught me, when you know something, you have a responsibility to share with friends. And that happened March 9, 2009. And so for these last 15 years, I've just been a woman who feels responsible to share anything that I learn with my friends. And I consider my community a community of good girlfriends that I just want to be a safe place to have some of these really uncomfortable conversations sometimes. And yeah, where we can unpack all of this stuff as it relates to money. So now Yes, my platform all these years later is called Redefining Wealth. And on a mission to share with people that wealth is so much more than just money and material possessions. When I started to clean my life up in what I now call the six pillars of wealth, the money was easily restored, and I rebuilt beyond what I had the first time. And that's what I want to help other people do for themselves.
Oh, there's so much I want to go into here. So, I don't know if you noticed, but I was really fighting back tears when you were talking about that bathroom
Mm.
moment because I've had that moment. I've had a couple of them actually. And I don't think a lot of people understand what it's like to genuinely be going through a coin jar and like to check if you've got enough money for
Shaking
bread.
out old purses,
Yeah.
you know?
Mine was my I think my lowest oh crap moment was in 2019, and we had two little kids and we got an eviction notice. And for someone like me who like you know, university qualified, it was like, what the heck is going on here? So let's maybe dive into that a little bit more because I
Mm-hmm.
understand a lot of people might get a bit triggered by the fact that you said you had a seven-figure business and they're like, how the hell is someone who has a seven-figure business, like, how do you get into a situation where you are struggling to pay the bills? So can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the business that I began was a real estate and mortgage business. So I actually got into the mortgage industry first when I was 19 years old. I was introduced to it and got licensed while I was in college. And during my senior year, I went after my broker's exam, passed on the first try. And so my second semester senior year, what was supposed to be a project, like a fake business, I literally used it to start my actual business. So I started this real estate and mortgage brokerage, ran it from a boutique company in Manhattan Beach, California, and then did that successfully for years until the recession hit. But what happened first was obviously, it was rooted in the real estate bubble bursting. And when that happened, I was actually on bed rest in the hospital. So I took a fall down the stairs at 20 weeks pregnant that sent me into preterm labor. So when I got to the emergency room, they basically just apologized and said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, you're in full blown labor. You're 20 weeks. There's nothing that we can do." And I was in the emergency room well over a full 24 hours. And they were like, well, the longer she stays in, the better. So they admitted me to the hospital. Well, Claire, that turned into a 10-week hospital stay. So I'm in the hospital on bed rest. I cannot move. I have to get assistance if I want to go to the restroom. I cannot move. And while I'm in the hospital on bed rest, I'm literally watching the banks that I work with every day close down.
Mm.
At the time, I had 16 loan officers and real estate agents who were a part of my team. They're calling me every other day, freaking out. This bank closed down. What are we going to do? The seller is threatening to sell. The, listing agent is doing this. Like everything that could go wrong was going wrong. And I'm in the hospital on bed rest. And everyone else was so used to me being a fixer, but I literally could not get up and go to the restroom without support. So I'll never forget, maybe like 4 or 5 weeks into that stay, my doctor came into the room. She said, the belt around your waist, we're monitoring the baby. If you don't stop stressing out, you're going to leave here 2 years in a row with no baby. The year before, I gave birth to a son prematurely, same hospital, same doctor, same floor, and he passed after 5 hours in my arms. So I had to make a decision. Do I keep stressing about something I have no control over, or do I surrender? And I chose to surrender in hopes that it would save my baby, which thank God it did. But a part of that was my husband at the time took the laptop, and I asked the hospital to take the TV off the wall because I didn't want to be tempted to just sit there and watch the doom and gloom on the news when there was nothing I could do. And I just made a choice. I was going to sing to this baby and off tune, off key, but I was going to sing to my baby and write, my prayers and dreams for her and all that stuff. And I kept a journal and I let everything else go. And so my husband at the time, who was my partner, exhausted a lot of our reserve, keeping everything afloat because we had no deals closing and we had payroll. We had overhead. And we also at the time had 13 pieces of real estate, investment property, and we had several of our own tenants who were not paying rent, but we were still floating the mortgages. So it didn't happen overnight, but definitely within about a year or so, I went from, thinking, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Everyone should get rich early. Everybody should just get rich in their 20s. This is wonderful. To literally being like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Our own home eventually foreclosed. And our own cars were repossessed within about 14 months. So everything that I knew was upside down. In 1 year, my life was barely recognizable in the worst way possible.
Oh my gosh. So that is your big aha moment where you decided I need to do things really differently next time around. Can I just take a moment and applaud you for your bravery in making that decision for your
Mm.
baby? It reminded me of something I haven't thought about in a very long time, but my manager, when I was in my early 20s, he became unwell. I can't remember, he had like a gallbladder issue or something like that. Nothing, something that's pretty treatable in modern medicine. And he kept ringing me. And I was like, dude, like, just don't worry about it. And he's like, but you got to do this. And his wife rocks up and says, I want the laptop. I said, I'm not giving it to you. He's unwell. And she literally insisted, took the laptop into him. My manager passed away because he just couldn't let go of this job. Like, and I just remembered that right then. And I'm like, there was no reason for him to pass away except that he couldn't let go of all of the stuff. He just kept going and going and going, and his body literally gave up. And he was only in his early 50s.
Wow.
And the fact that you in that moment said no is
I
so brave.
I felt it like in my body intuitively. And this is something that I've also learned just over the last couple decades now, I guess, or a decade or so, is how much the answers about what we should do or not do really lie like within us. But for
Mhm.
so long, we're taught to dismiss it,
Yeah.
or we're taught to like, oh, I'm going to trust whatever this external thing is saying, like, which is, I need to get the report in, or I need to do the thing, or I need to know what's going on. When our bodies, our souls are literally like, please take a break, begging us to just like take a step back and focus on what really matters. Ultimately, saving those deals would have mattered at that time. But now that I am the mother of a 16-year-old who's now applying to go to college, and she is literally the light of my life, my best friend, the most beautiful person that I know inside and out. Like I gave birth to and almost lost. If I would have made that choice, right, to leave the TV up and harp on all these things that I literally don't have any control over. The only thing that I can control is what do I do when I get out of here? How do I move forward after this? But being able to take a step back and say, what's the most important thing to me right now? And this is why we redefine wealth for ourselves, because money was not the most important thing to me in that hospital bedroom. And did I add, Claire, I left there with almost $400,000 in medical debt on top of no deals closing and all the other things that were going on. But ultimately, whatever had to happen for me to move past that time financially, I have the greatest gift I could have ever asked for, which is my daughter.
Mm.
It's like I can't even imagine prioritizing money
Mm.
over me being able to bring her into the world safely at that time. I would have lost greatly. I That would have been the greatest loss.
Mm. That's so, so true. So if people are listening to this and maybe they're in this real quandary in their heads, because we do still live in a very 3D world where
Mm-hmm.
we need money for shelter and food. And also people want to have nice experiences. How do you what is the balance between, you know, understanding that there's more important things in life, but also money is still important. So how do you
Yeah.
sort of reconcile the difference between the two?
Yeah, and I'm so glad you asked that, because I think sometimes even when people hear my mantra chase purpose not money, they assume it means don't have any money. I'm like, no, I'm not saying that at all. Like if you owe me money, I actually want my money. Like I actually do want it. Like if you're hiring me to do something, I'm going to need you to pay me. It's not that. It's that When we only make decisions from the lens of how much money is it, then now we are making decisions from a place of, I believe, scarcity and lack and fear rather than faith. I don't only make decisions based on, well, how much money is it? Because if I do, more than likely, I'll find myself in positions and places, environments, relationships that are not aligned. And if they're not aligned, they're going to cause a void anyway that will inevitably help me get rid of the money, right? Because it's not aligned with who I really am, what I really desire, and what matters to me. So it's the recipe for sabotage. You're going to
Mm.
sabotage it anyway. So you may get it in the short term, but can you keep it? Can you sustain it? So what I also learned on that bathroom floor when I got to digging around the dictionary, the difference between knowledge and wisdom, but I also looked up what's the definition of wealth. And the reason the platform is redefining wealth is because what I found is wealth was never just money and material possessions. That was only the very surface level definition. The original definition is actually the condition of well being. WEAL is the condition of being well, right? Or being well. And then the TH represents the condition of. So it's not that money is immaterial or doesn't matter. It's just that it's not the thing you have to lead with. And we know this to be true because think about, how often you'll hear people lead with these imaginary numbers. Well, when I make six figures, remember when that was like like
Mm.
the thing. It's like when I
Yeah.
make six figures, everything will be well. Okay, then they spend a lot of time, energy, effort doing all the things to chase this number that they haven't even connected to anything in the rest of their life. It's just this, oh, when I get to $100,000, you don't even know, right? Like we have pillars. So I always talk about things in context of the pillars. So I always tell my community, you don't even know what the number is you actually want. You're just chasing a random number. Because when you think about in your physical and mental fitness, what do you need to actually have to live the way that you want to live in that particular pillar? It's different for all of us. People pillar, what are the types of things you actually see yourself doing? With your family, like what is your vision for that? Because then that'll dictate a certain number. And then we go through space pillar, that'll dictate a certain number. Some of us will find that we would actually be very happy and content at $80,000 a year. And the additional time that we're wearing ourselves out, burning out, not spending time with family, not doing the things that actually matter to us, not volunteering, not showing up in the ways that we want to, is squandered on chasing another 10, 20, 30, $40,000 that wouldn't even make you happier. It wouldn't make you
Mm.
feel well. It wouldn't make you happier. And ultimately, it didn't even matter. That's why so many people will hit a dollar amount and still feel unfulfilled. I know a lot of seven-figure business owners that are completely unfulfilled. They get off on being able to say, oh, I'm a seven-figure business owner on stage, but behind the scenes, their life is a wreck and they're unhappy. You get to choose what that number is. So it's not that you don't need the number, but make sure that you are pursuing a number that aligns with the life you actually desire.
Mm, so much. Yeah. Yeah. And there's that real balance as well, isn't there, between ego and to your point, like what is true spiritual fulfillment and how much of this is being able to say a number. Another big thing, that I teach about a lot is a lot of times just because someone's making seven figures a year doesn't actually mean that that their business is even profitable or making that much money. So that's another factor to
Oh,
measure in there.
so huge. Social media drives me nuts, Claire. Can I just be honest with you?
Hmm.
It creates this idea that everyone should just be living high on the hog, as they say here. Like, and going after these arbitrary numbers when you look at someone sometimes who says they have a seven-figure business, we don't know if they have $989,000 of expenses to create said business, in which case with your $100,000 business that you and your VA may be running, right? You may be way more profitable. And they are literally so caught up in the cycle. They've become a prisoner to the perception that people have of them that it's not even enjoyable. That's not wealth to me. Wealth is not just a dollar amount. It's not how much you make, it's not how much you save. Wealth to me is freedom. It is the
Mm.
freedom to do what I want, when I want, where I want, for how long I want, with whom I want. That is actual wealth to me. Because if I can live my life well, if I can look at each pillar of my life and feel good about where I am, where I'm going, and feel completely aligned with my morals and my values and maintain the character that I want to have, I am well. I made millions of dollars in different seasons of my life, especially with my ex husband. And I was not well in the people pillar. I was settling for behavior that was beneath me and confusing self-confidence with self-worth and all this other stuff. Like I was not necessarily well. Oh, but I had a huge house and we had 6 cars and I was traveling all over the world first class and taking all of these amazing vacations. I was willing to pursue peace over appearances and end that. And for me, that was the well thing to do. That was the most wealthy thing that I could do, was choose inner peace and an internal sense of like knowing that I'm on the right path over external validation, that because people may see all these things, now they think I'm wealthy. I
Mm.
rather know that I'm wealthy in relationships, spiritually, in every way possible, than have the perception of wealth for others.
So what are these pillars that you keep coming back to? The true pillars of wealth that you talk about? I heard you say people.
Yeah. So the first pillar is fit. Fit is about becoming your best self. And it's about being mentally and physically well. I truly believe that many of us are praying for positions that we don't have the mental capacity to sustain. For me, that was true at different times throughout my life, but in particular, Claire, just growing up feeling like the ugly duckling and feeling like in my family, I was told, oh, you're the ugly one, you're the dark one, you're the this,
But
you're the
you're
that.
beautiful. How could anyone ever think
uh,
that?
I received that. Thank you so much. And I can receive that now, but for 25 years of my life, I could not receive that. I would have been like, she's just trying to be nice. I just could not receive it. And it wasn't until I went to therapy. I started therapy at 22 years old. I was 25 before I could look in the mirror without cringing and without wishing I looked like someone else, a cousin or someone else. And I say that to say, when I look at my life today and being on national television regularly and my face on the cover of 5 books and speaking on stages and doing all these things, I see now that had I not dealt with that, it would have blocked me from the wealth that I desired. It would have blocked me from making the money that I ultimately desired in this way and being in a position where I could sustain it now, right? Because 25 is also when I first hit 7 figures in that first business. And a part of that was like being able to pitch myself more and have more confidence. I was always smart. There's a lot of brilliant women who are listening to this podcast. They know that, you're listening to me right now. You are the smartest around, but you don't always raise your hand or throw your hat in the ring for an opportunity or feel comfortable sending the proposal because you lack confidence, possibly in some type of childhood trauma that you have not expressed or dealt with yet. And I call childhood traumas like a beach ball that we keep trying to push under the water. And we're like, oh, we're trying to keep it down, right? As long as we're using 2 hands and all of our energy and effort to stuff that down, this is now energy and time and effort taken away from what we actually are called to do in the world. And then ultimately that impacts our ability to get to the wealth that we desire. So it's about being mentally and also physically well. Doesn't matter to me. Number on the scale, dress size. I've looked totally thin and been completely unhealthy at different points in my life. And it's really just about, are you doing the work to protect the vessel needed to execute this vision you have for your finances? Because many people are exhausting themselves and burning themselves out to dig an early grave for which they won't be able to enjoy the money anyway, or to spend a good part of their lives paying for prescriptions they can't pronounce.
Mm.
I don't know how it is where you are, but where I am, there's a lot of um, preventable diseases that people are dealing with because they refuse to take care of themselves. And some of us do it in the name of, I'm working on my purpose, or I'm doing the things, but we're also just allowing ourselves to mistreat the only vessel that we're going to get. So this is a big piece. When we say health is wealth, let's take that seriously. So that's the first pillar. Second pillar is people. It's about creating relationships that matter personally and professionally. I will say one of my biggest takeaways in the people pillar has just been there's always someone watching you who has the power to bless you, but who are they watching you be? Like, how are they watching you show up? Relationships have been the foundation for any measure of wealth I've had. I believe that the relationships that we have in our lives really do determine, right, the language that we speak, like the way that we see wealth, the way that we see finances, the way that we see success, the way that we see rich people. If you're around people that use disempowering language, you inevitably are going to use disempowering language, right? So being in proximity to people that have the language and lens of abundance has been secret sauce for me. It's just been there are not very many things that I've had to pitch for. When people say, "Oh, how'd you get on the Steve Harvey show or the Dr. Oz show here? Or how'd you end up in this magazine or that magazine?" I wish I could tell you I had some high powered publicists. I really think it's vibration and energy. I think it's the fact that I treat everyone with respect. I treat people with dignity. And I don't care if you are the custodian or the CEO. I'm going to smile and say hi on the elevator. I am no respecter of person, right? We live in a time where people only prioritize and value folks that have blue checks, if they have a certain number of Instagram followers, if they have a certain this and a certain that, then you decide if someone is worth your time or not. And personally, I've just been an energy person. I've just like really look for, does this person's energy, do I feel like I could have a great conversation with this person, or does it feel aligned, so there's no rhyme or reason. There's no, oh, you have to have this. And because I've navigated the world that way, many of the referrals that I've gotten have just come from people I would have never expected. Like literally, I would have never expected some of them to advocate for me or to put me in certain places. And so we have a really big emphasis at the Institute for Redefining Wealth on building relationships and how to nurture long-term relationships. Not because you want something, but just because when you are at that energy, it's inevitable you're going to attract more of the same. So that's been big for us. I would say third pillar is space pillar. It's about setting up your life to support you. One of our big takeaways there is we know that a lot of us are dealing with clutter, even if it's pretty clutter, even if it's hidden clutter. And we believe that clutter is a physical manifestation of chaos in our mind. Like in March, we're actually doing a challenge in my community called Release to Receive. And we're looking at each one of the pillars and going, what do you need to release there to receive what you want? Relationships, going back to people pillar, is really big for people right now. And I've been hearing a lot about people being in relationships that don't feel like they're being honored, valued, or it's not reciprocated. The energy they give is not reciprocated. So one of the things I'm going to assign to them is, if the people pillar is your thing and you want better relationships, clean out your phone contacts. How many of us are walking around with thousands of contacts? All of these things represent energy. So we have all of these contacts. And when we have all of these people who we know don't deserve us, but we leave it open for them to get to us and contact us. Like, if we're not good energy, you can't just text me. You can't just text me. You don't deserve access to me. Right. But a lot of us are giving up our energy. And again, all of this is energy that could be put into what it is you say you want, instead of keeping yourself in spaces where you're talking about what you don't like and what you don't want. So space is really important to us, and space is represented in each one of the pillars. Like there's a physical space that always represents where you don't feel your best and where you feel stuck. And first exercise is always be radically honest about what's not serving you, and then look for a physical representation of that and allow yourself to create rituals to clear them. I'm really big on just clearing space, clearing energy, so that I can call in what I do desire. So that's space pillar. The fourth pillar is faith. It's about believing in something greater. I often say, I don't care what people believe in, Claire. If you say you believe in something, though, make time to practice it, because life is so full of ups and downs. Like your eviction notice in 2019, my eviction notices back in 2009. Life is so full of ups and downs. It's not a matter of if, it's just when. there's going to be something that comes that doesn't really meet your desire. But do you have practices in place so that you can exercise resilience when it's needed? And I think a lot of us are so reactive. And with the faith pillar, I just encourage people to be proactive about building that muscle so that when the time comes, you're ready. Um, I think that's been for me. I know you said you've had multiple ugly cry moments, maybe, or bathroom floor moments. I have too. And the reason that I can get up and move so quickly, like into the next thing, is because that muscle, I already have a process for how I process life. So that's what the faith pillar means to me. Don't care what you say you believe in, but if you say you believe in something, make time to practice, whether that's meditation or journaling or praying or being still, being silent, some type of mindfulness, just whatever allows you to center yourself and get ready. So we stay ready so we don't have to get ready. And then the fifth pillar is about work. It's living your life's purpose. I don't believe that people follow their passion and the money will come. Um, I hate when people say that actually, that, oh, follow your passion and the money will come. A lot of us are passionate about things we're not proficient in. You might be
Mm.
really passionate. You might have, I don't know about you, but I love singing in the shower. Like if you come to my bathroom door, if you come to my master bedroom door when I'm in the shower, you are going to get serenaded. And it's not with the best voice. I'm gonna keep it, I'm a podcaster. I am not a concert hall performer. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to pay to see me on that kind of stage singing. Very passionate about it, but not proficient. So it would be crazy for me to spend all this time exercising energy simply chasing something I'm passionate about. Passion is energy, it's excitement. It's like, oh, what's the thing that lights you up and the thing that keeps you maybe not even going to the restroom. Like you are so in it, you look up and you're like, I haven't eaten, I haven't slept, I haven't gone to the bathroom, no liquid exchange. Okay, that's wonderful. But until you can use that thing to actually be a blessing to someone else, it's not purpose. When it's you, just for you, it's passion. But when it's for others, it's purpose. What I've learned over the years is when you start to see how the thing that you are naturally inclined to do can be a blessing to others, and you allow yourself to get passionate about that, magic happens. Like I never saw myself as a writer. I was always a good writer, even back in high school and college, but I never saw myself as a writer. But when I started to blog in 2009 and people were responding, and I got to see how my words impacted other people, it gave me enthusiasm and excitement to go, man, I need to maybe learn how to be more efficient at this. Maybe I can do more things. Then I started writing for magazines, and then that led me writing my first book, and so on and so forth. And now I'm passionate about writing in the ways that feel good to me now. But I originally never saw it as a thing. The big thing that we share with the work pillar at Redefining Wealth is when you are not doing something that feels purposeful and you spend so much time agonizing and trying to force yourself in these spaces that don't necessarily fit for you, it only deepens that void. And I should have said too, I have an MBA in behavioral finance and financial psychology. So a lot of this is backed. I just don't use all the jargon, but it starts to create a void. And when you don't address the void, when you don't fill the void with something that feels fulfilling, it only leads to more mismanagement of finances. It only leads you, because this is how now when we get a paycheck, we start saying, well, I work hard and I deserve it. So now we're buying things that we already own in just 17 versions of the same shoes. You know what I mean? Like you're just buying the same types of things. Now we're making choices with our money that are not really rooted in anything that we know to be wise. We're just making these emotional buys and choices. And not just with things, a lot of us buy people too when we're unfulfilled. So we use money to earn love and earn respect and earn any number of things, validation from others. So that's the work pillar. And then the last pillar is money. Finally, the money lady gets the money. I was called America's Money Maven for like 10 years here. And I don't even really talk about money like that anymore. I leave that to awesome women like you. But with the money pillar, really what we focus on in redefining wealth is just respecting where you are now, and different exercises just around respecting, because around respect, excuse me, because I believe it's a muscle that you build. I don't think that when someone hits a certain dollar amount, all of a sudden they become financially wise. I think that we start literally building muscles. So for even for myself, when I was at my worst rebuilding, when I wanted to become a saver again and really take on the identity of a saver, I started saving. I think at the time it was like $14 or something out of these little checks I would get. And it wasn't about the denomination, it was about the discipline. So as my career started to grow again and I started to, get bigger checks, I was already in the discipline of taking a percentage and saving it. And so when we continue to clear the clutter in all these other places in our lives, it becomes much easier to do the things we've already learned in the money pillar.
Oh my
I know that
gosh.
was a lot.
So good. No, that was amazing. I was just sitting here lapping that all up. The way, so you've given some really great examples. How do you actually help people who are like, this is all resonating with me. I want to go on this journey. Like, what's the programs that you take people through to support them to redefine wealth in their lives?
Yeah, just in the last year and a half now, actually, the program I would say foundationally is the Institute for Redefining Wealth. It's actually just a membership. And so every month it is structured to really focus on a theme of the month based on the pillar. So at the beginning of this year, Fit Pillar was about month of mindfulness, and the whole community was just trying different mindfulness techniques so that they could clear their minds to actually establish a new dream and vision for themselves, and then we use the pillars to help support that vision. So in the Institute for Redefining Wealth, they get access to a course that I've created called Pillar Foundations, and you literally get like a 15-minute training on each pillar, but then I lay out about 10 to 12 lessons per pillar, so that you could go through your life and just look at one by one, like, oh, is this something that I could apply to my life? I don't think everyone needs to do everything. I think it just depends on what is your actual goal and vision and dream. And then we have a quiz called the Redefining Wealth Quiz, which anyone can take. It's totally free. It's patricewashington.com/quiz. But what happens is a lot of people identify the pillar that may need the most support, like in this season. And then they come in, they do the training for that pillar, and then they do all the lessons to see where am I kind of disconnected and what can I start to implement, and how would that help me get closer to my goal. So the main thing is the Institute for Redefining Wealth. It's a $49 a month membership.
Wow, that's a really accessible price point. And I am eyeing off your book as well. You've got a couple of books. Which
Mhm.
book talks about the pillars that you've mentioned today?
The book is Redefine Wealth for Yourself. It's the last book I wrote in 2021. And it's also a great starting place. It takes you through each one of the pillars, and it has a lot of the breakdown, but then the practical exercises, everything from journaling prompts to like physical exercises to go and do in your life. And it goes through a lot of the rituals, habits, just routines that have been developed over the years, either through my own experience or also through supporting clients one on one.
I am so going to go and buy that book right now. And what I'll do, I'll pop the link for the membership, how you can connect with Patrice on socials, her website, the quiz. I did see that on your website as well. I thought, oh, that looks interesting. And a link to grab a copy of your book. So I'll pop all of that in the show notes for today's episode. Is there anything else that you do want to share with the listeners before we wrap up for today, Patrice?
I just want to remind everyone listening that you have the right to redefine wealth for yourself. It does not matter what your, parents said, what your any adult who had authority over you said. A lot of us are going on autopilot, trying to hit goals and metrics that were never ours to begin with. And so I just want to remind you and hopefully give you some permission today that you truly can redefine wealth for yourself. You can be radically honest about whatever in any of these pillars has not been serving you, and make a choice to redefine what that looks like for you moving forward in a way that feels good and feels authentic and feels aligned for you. Because ultimately, that is the only way that you will experience true abundance in this lifetime, is to do things on your terms. And you have the right to. Nobody can take that away from you.
What a beautiful way to wrap up our episode. Thank you so much for coming on, Patrice. I really, really appreciate your time and I've loved our conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so kind of you to invite me into your world and share me with your audience, and I appreciate it. So thank you.